The envelope was thick and cream-colored, heavy in my hand like a secret waiting to be told. Gold embossing caught the light, an elegant image of a yacht slicing through sapphire blue waves. It screamed money, legacy, power. But most of all it screamed one thing: exclusion. I already knew what was inside before I slid my finger beneath the seal. I'd seen this same envelope every summer for as long as I could remember. The Parker family annual summer cruise, a floating shrine to ego, wealth, and self-congratulation. It was always the same. Expensive champagne, smug toasts, and my brother Marcus holding court like royalty while everyone else orbited his sun. Everyone, of course, except me. My fingers brushed over the raised script, elegant and obnoxious all at once. You are cordially invited to join the Parker family aboard the Aurora. I didn't need to read the rest. The name of the yacht alone was enough to make me laugh. Last year they'd forgotten to send my invitation. That was the official line anyway. A clerical error. Misplaced address. The truth? Marcus didn't want me there. My success made him uncomfortable, though he'd never admit it. According to him, I was the family disappointment, the dropout, the rebel, the girl who walked away from Parker Investments to play with websites. But this year they couldn't ignore me. I made damn sure of that. The invitation had barely touched my desk when my phone rang, sharp and shrill like it knew something was coming. Sarah. My mother's voice cooed through the speaker, soft and syrupy with that practiced concern she used like perfume, applied liberally, reeking of artificial sweetness. We need to talk about the cruise. I leaned back in my leather chair, glancing out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse office. Below me, the marina glistened in the morning sun, full of million-dollar yachts and billion-dollar egos. Mine stood out among them. 300 feet of pure, unapologetic luxury. The Aurora. My Aurora. What about it, Mom? I asked, already knowing where this was going. There was a pause on her end. A breath. Sigh. Well, darling, she began, your brother thinks, and I agree, that this year's guest list should be selective. I smiled, watching a team of workers polishing the hull of the yacht. My yacht. They didn't know they were preparing it for its owner. Not some silver-spooned heir with a leased Rolex and a LinkedIn profile full of handouts. Selective. I said, my voice light, curious. Sounds strategic. You know how these things are, she continued quickly, relieved I hadn't snapped yet. It's just, important people will be attending. Business contacts. Investors. We want to maintain a certain image. Of course they did. The Parkers had always been about image. And that image never included me. Not really. I wasn't the golden child. That was Marcus, the prodigal son who never actually left. The heir to the empire who never built a single brick of it himself. He stayed in the family business, shook the right hands, toasted the right glasses of Dom Perignon. And me? I left. I dared to build something of my own. Something digital. Something new. Something they couldn't understand. I glanced at the stack of acquisition papers on my desk, each signature representing a piece of an empire they didn't even know existed yet. My little internet thing had just bought out one of the biggest competitors in tech for $4.2 billion. But to them I was still the disappointment. And I don't fit that image, I said, my voice flat but calm. Oh honey, don't say it like that. My mother rushed in, panicked by my directness. We're just trying to be careful. People talk, you know. Yes, I said. They do. There was a long pause, and for once my mother didn't know what to say. Well, she finally whispered, I just hope you understand. I do, I replied, keeping my tone light, even as the weight of 1,000 old insults pressed down like lead. And don't worry. I won't make a scene. A beat of silence, then relief bloomed in her voice. Oh, I'm so glad. Marcus was worried. I'll just come to the marina to see you all off, I interrupted, sweet as poisoned honey. Another pause. That's not necessary, darling, she said, a little too quickly. We wouldn't want you to go out of your way. I insist. I hung up before she could argue. Turning back to my desk, I pressed a button on the intercom. Maria, I said, is everything ready for tomorrow? Yes, Miss Parker, my assistant replied. The captain and crew have their instructions. She hesitated, then added, Are you sure you want to do it this way? I looked again at the sparkling white yacht below. Every detail exactly how I envisioned it. It had taken months of planning, negotiations, and enough cash to make Wall Street blink. But it was mine. Every inch. Every screw. Every sail. I thought of the Christmas parties where I was seated at the kids' table, while Marcus got standing ovations for graduating college with a 2.9 GPA. The birthdays where I got gift cards while he got Rolexes. The endless stream of relatives offering to help me find a real job. I smiled. Absolutely sure, I said. Tomorrow, the Parkers were going to board what they thought was a rented symbol of their success. What they didn't know was that they were stepping onto a stage I had built, funded, and set for the show of a lifetime. Let the curtain rise. The Parker family arrived exactly on schedule. 10 a.m. sharp. Like they were walking onto a red carpet instead of a yacht deck. The sun lit up the marina like a spotlight, bouncing off their oversized sunglasses, silk scarves, and gleaming cufflinks. They didn't notice the reporters hovering at a distance, nor the strategically placed paparazzi disguised as tourists. But I did. From the top deck of the adjacent yacht, where I stood behind one-way tinted glass, I watched them strut aboard my vessel like it was theirs. My brother Marcus led the pack, wearing a navy blazer that probably cost more than most people's rent, and that smug half-smile he reserved for cameras and conquests. My parents followed close behind, flanked by two of their country club friends, the kind who wore pastel polos and whispered legacies over martinis. They had no idea what was coming. Do they really not recognize the boat? Maria asked beside me, watching through binoculars with a mix of amusement and disbelief. Of course not, I replied. They never paid attention to the details, only the brand. The yacht was identical in name and size to the one they chartered every year, down to the signature chrome lettering across the stern, Aurora. But this wasn't a rental. This was a custom-built, tech-infused fortress I'd spent 18 months designing to look exactly like their usual floating ego trip. Except for one thing. This time I controlled everything. A soft chime rang through my earpiece. Guests are aboard, the captain's voice confirmed. Shall we begin, Miss Parker? I grinned. Let the cruise begin. From the moment they stepped foot on the main deck, everything was engineered for maximum psychological impact. The champagne they sipped? Vintage 1996 Cru Classe d'Ambonne. Impossibly rare and triple the usual budget. The flower arrangements? Hand-selected white orchids, my mother's favorite. The piano softly playing in the main salon? It was Marcus's go-to victory anthem. Beethoven's Ode to Joy. It was all so familiar. So perfectly them. And yet something was off just enough to itch. Marcus noticed it first. He walked through the main lounge with a puzzled look, pausing in front of a glass display case. Inside was a single framed photo. A candid shot of a teenage girl in a hoodie, sitting cross-legged on a rooftop, laughing under the stars. Me. He frowned. Who put this here? He asked one of the stewards. I'm sorry, sir, the man replied with a polished smile. I believe the owner requested it. The owner? Marcus blinked. You mean the rental company? No, sir. The owner. For a moment I could see it. His brain struggling to process that one small deviation from the narrative he'd built for himself. That maybe, just maybe, this wasn't what he thought it was. Everything all right, darling? My mother asked, appearing behind him with a mimosa in hand. Marcus pointed at the photo. Did you see this? She leaned in, squinted, then paled. Is that Sarah? Marcus nodded slowly. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Must be a mistake. We'll have the crew remove it. But the crew didn't move. In fact, one of them gently closed the case and locked it with a soft click. Marcus looked around, eyes narrowing. Where's the charter manager? That was when the voice came over the loudspeaker. Good morning, Parkers. It was my voice. Smooth, I'm so confident, glad you could piped make through it. Every speaker I on know the it's ship. Unusual for me Welcome to host aboard this the year's Aurora. cruise, especially since I was told I wasn't quite the right fit for your guest list. But hey, what can I say? I love surprises. There was a pause, long enough for them to freeze, glasses half raised, faces tightening. I'd like to personally invite you to enjoy this week to the fullest. Don't worry. Everything has been arranged to your exact preferences. Your suites are ready. Your staff is prepped. And your egos, well, they'll be catered to as always. I could practically feel the tension through the monitors. My father spoke for the first time. This is a joke. She's bluffing. No, Charles, I said, continuing the audio feed. I'm not. With a tap on my tablet, the screen in the main salon flickered to life. A live feed of me appeared, sitting in a control room, feet up, sipping an espresso. Hi, Dad, I said, giving a little wave. My mother dropped her glass. Sarah, Marcus barked, stepping toward the screen. What the hell is this? Are you spying on us? Spying? I laughed. Please. You're on my yacht. I'm just welcoming my guests. You're insane. Maybe. But I'm also a billionaire now. So I get to be a little eccentric. Marcus clenched his jaw. Turn this around. Now. I leaned forward on the screen, smiling coldly. Oh, but Marcus. We haven't even left the dock. With that, the engines hummed to life beneath them. The Aurora pulled slowly away from the marina, slicing through the water like a blade. No one had given the order. No one on that deck had any control. But I did. And for the first time in their lives, the Parkers were going to learn what it felt like to be at someone else's mercy. This wasn't just revenge. It was the beginning of the reckoning. The sea had swallowed the skyline. Land was nothing more than a memory on the horizon, a hazy smear of civilization behind them. The Aurora was now in international waters, mine legally and otherwise. Inside, the mood had shifted. The Parkers weren't used to silence. They were used to staff who scrambled when they snapped their fingers, to conversations carefully rehearsed for optics, to dominance over every room they entered. But here aboard my yacht, the silence spoke louder than any of them could. In the observation lounge, Marcus paced like a lion denied the kill. My father retreated to the library, probably trying to find logic in maritime law. And my mother, for once, didn't have a single word to say. She sat perfectly still on a cream velvet chaise, fingers tight around a stemless wine glass she hadn't touched. Just watching. They were waiting. But I wasn't coming to them yet. Instead, I let the day unfold according to their usual itinerary. Spa treatments, chef-curated meals, afternoon cocktails on the sun deck. Everything felt normal on the surface. It was all part of the plan. Give them the illusion of control just long enough for the cracks to show. And they were showing. Dinner was served at 7. Lobster risotto. Truffle oil. A vintage Bordeaux that my father had been chasing at auctions for years. It was all plated with surgical precision by staff they'd never seen before. Staff who never spoke, only nodded. The kind of silence that had intent behind it. Where's the crew from last year? Marcus asked, poking at his plate like it had insulted him. They were unavailable, said one of the servers flatly. My mother flinched. She hated answers that weren't wrapped in flattery. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Dessert arrived. 4 pristine chocolate domes placed at each setting. As the warm sauce was poured over each one, the shell melted away to reveal a single cold message inside each dish. Marcus, power is nothing without conscience. My mother, elegance isn't empathy. My father, Legacy built on silence is no legacy at all. And mine. Welcome home. For a moment no one breathed. My mother pushed her plate away like it had burned her. My father stood abruptly, muttering something about legal violations. Marcus just glared at the message in his dish as if he could will it to disappear. Then finally he exploded. "You think this makes you powerful?" he shouted, standing now, fists clenched at his sides. "Hijacking a yacht and hiding behind surveillance screens? You're just a bitter little girl with daddy issues and too much money." I let the words hang in the air for a beat before responding through the ceiling speakers. "No, Marcus," I said, voice calm, deliberate. "I'm a woman who survived you all." He froze. "You don't get to rewrite history," he growled. "Oh, but that's where you're wrong," I said. "Because this time I kept the receipts." A second later, the lights dimmed, and the main screen in the dining room lit up with security footage, dated years ago. A teenage girl, me, standing in the Parkers' living room, holding a sketchbook. My mother's voice off camera, cold and sharp. "That's not art, Sarah. That's embarrassing. Burn it." Next clip. Marcus at a party bragging to friends. "My sister? Yeah, she's smart but kind of a mess. She'll drop out within a year. Trust me." Next, my father in an interview. "Only one Parker child is being groomed for leadership. We don't have time for distractions." The room went still. I let the video play just long enough to leave a mark but not long enough for them to look away. Then the screen faded to black, and the lights returned to normal. Silence again. "Why are you doing this?" my mother finally whispered. Not angry. Not cruel. Just broken. I paused before replying. "Because I gave you every chance to see me," I said. "And every time you looked away." I let that sit in the air, thick and undeniable. "You won't be harmed," I added. "You're not prisoners. But for the next 6 days you'll follow my rules. You'll live in my version of the story. And if you're lucky, you might learn something before the end." Then I cut the audio feed and turned off the monitors. I sat alone in the control room, the hum of the engines beneath me, the stars above the ocean stretching out forever. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running from the Parker name. I was rewriting aita. It started small. A creak in the hallway that wasn't part of the yacht's natural rhythm. A flicker in the surveillance feed, half a second of static. A missing fruit knife from the breakfast table. They were testing the cage. And I let them. Day 2 began with the hum of the ocean and silence from the crew. My staff, the ones I trusted, had been briefed months in advance. No names. No personal conversations. No mistakes. Every second was scripted, but scripted to feel spontaneous. Controlled chaos. The Parkers were no longer in control. At breakfast, Marcus showed up in gym gear, as if it were just another Tuesday at their estate in the Hamptons. He smiled too easily, his voice too light. "I was wondering," he said, stirring his coffee, "how many laws you've broken already." I didn't reply directly. Instead, I simply said, "International waters are a funny thing." He laughed, but his fingers tapped a little too fast on the side of his mug. My father didn't come to breakfast. Neither did my mother. But I knew where they were. He'd been in the library all night, reading maritime statutes, searching for loopholes. She'd spent the morning on the top deck staring into the horizon, still dressed in last night's silk. Her posture told me everything. This wasn't a tantrum. This was something deeper. Regret, maybe. Or fear. By noon the first attempt came. The engine room door had been tampered with. Someone had pried open the panel casing, carefully but not carefully enough. My engineer caught it within minutes. I made no announcement, issued no warning. I wanted them to think they had a shot. That was the point. Desperation makes people reveal their true selves. That evening, I invited them to a screening in the main theater room. They showed up wary but curious. A classic Parker trait, they couldn't resist spectacle. The screen flickered to life. But instead of a film, I played a video diary. My diary. Years of it. Me at 17. Recording on my laptop after Marcus locked me out of the family estate for missing a dinner. Me at 19. Sobbing quietly in a Paris hostel after my father forgot to transfer the funds he promised for my art program. Me at 23 reading a rejection email out loud, the one from the Parker Foundation, the charity my own family owned, denying my scholarship application. The room was silent. Even Marcus didn't move. When the video ended, I stepped in front of the screen. "I don't need you to apologize," I said, voice level. "That's not what this is." My mother's voice cracked through the silence. "Then what is it, Sarah?" I looked at her, really looked. She was smaller than I remembered. Fragile in a way that had nothing to do with age. "It's proof," I said, "that I exist. That I have always existed. You tried to edit me out of your legacy. This is me putting myself back in." My father stood slowly, spine rigid. "You're trying to humiliate us." "No," I said calmly. "If I wanted to humiliate you, this would already be on every screen in New York." He froze. They knew I could. With the Parker name came access, contacts, servers, encryption keys they'd forgotten they gave me back when I was just a harmless daughter with a MacBook. "I'm not here to ruin you," I said. "I'm here to force you to look at yourselves, at me." Then I turned and left. That night, the yacht drifted through calm waters. The moon hung low, casting silver trails across the deck. And still I couldn't sleep. Not because I doubted my plan, but because somewhere beneath all the layers of strategy and justice and pain, I still wondered if any of them would choose to change. Just once. Around 2 a.m., a soft knock on the door to the bridge startled me. I opened it. My mother stood there. Barefoot. No makeup. A silk robe half tied over a tank top she probably hadn't worn since the 90s. She didn't say anything at first. Just walked in, looked out the window at the ocean, arms crossed against the chill. Then quietly, almost inaudibly, "I don't remember that night. The sketchbook." What I said. I didn't respond. She turned toward me, eyes glassy but unblinking. "But I believe you." Those 4 words, simple, weightless to anyone else, landed in my chest like a stone. I nodded once. It was all I could do. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. "You start," I said, "by not pretending it didn't happen." We stood in silence together, the ocean whispering through the glass. Somewhere inside me the ice shifted, just a little. She left quietly after that. But for the first time in years I didn't feel like a ghost in my own story. The next morning, I awoke to find a message folded under my cabin door. From Marcus. 5 words written in thick black ink. "Let's play, little sister." The war had officially begun. The note was Marcus's version of a declaration of war. I stared at it longer than I should have, the ink bleeding slightly at the edges from the moisture in the morning air. 5 words. Simple. Arrogant. Calculated. "Let's play, little sister." He was trying to turn this into a game. Into something he could win. He didn't understand. I stopped playing years ago. At breakfast he was already waiting. Dressed in linen, sleeves rolled, sunglasses perched just a little too perfectly on his face. That fake billionaire ease he always wore like armor. "You got my message," he said, slicing into a mango like it owed him something. "I did," I replied. A little unoriginal but on brand. He smiled. "You've always had a mouth on you. And you've always mistaken cruelty for cleverness." That wiped the grin off his face for just a second. But Marcus was nothing if not composed. He set down his fork, leaned back and studied me like he was appraising a chessboard. "So what now? You parade us around your yacht, while you play director of your trauma documentary." I kept my expression neutral. "You haven't seen the ending yet." He laughed, but his eyes narrowed. Later that afternoon I found what he wanted me to find. A thumb drive, taped under my desk in the captain's study, the one place I let my guard down. It was a trap, obviously, but I plugged it in anyway. One video file. It opened to surveillance footage. Grainy. Timestamp 2 years ago. My apartment. My studio. Someone had broken in. Not to steal but to erase. My hard drives, my original art files gone. A figure tall, gloved, careful, worked for hours. The cameras had been scrubbed. I only ever suspected. I never had proof. Until now. Marcus's voice suddenly played over the footage. I thought you deserved to know. Your work was better than I expected. Too good. Father didn't like the idea of you having power. Then silence. I froze. This wasn't just a game. He was trying to turn the tables, to make me question who the real villain was, to imply he had protected me, in his own twisted way. But that wasn't protection. That was control. Erasure. The same thing they'd always done, just cleaner. Still, it told me something else. He was scared. That night the power cut out. Emergency lights kicked in, and alarms stayed eerily silent. Sabotage. The yacht wasn't just floating anymore. Someone had dropped anchor without permission. I ran to the bridge, grabbed the radio. No one was responding. Then footsteps behind me. Marcus. Holding a flare gun. Of course he would choose something theatrical. Careful, I said. You could set the whole legacy on fire. That's the idea, he replied. He tossed the gun onto the seat, didn't even aim it. He wasn't here to kill me. Not yet. He walked to the window, staring at the black ocean beyond. You think this is justice, Sarah. What you're doing. But it's revenge. I shrugged. Maybe it's both. He turned back. You think you're strong because you took the ship. But you only learned power from watching us. You are one of us. You just won't admit it. That landed. Because in a twisted way he was right. Everything I knew about power I learned from watching them. The difference was I knew how it felt to be powerless. You're right, I said quietly. I learned from the best. I just decided not to become you. He didn't reply. Instead he walked out. But he left the flare gun behind. A symbol. Or maybe a choice. Hours later, I received a message on the yacht's internal comm system. One of my crew members was missing. The youngest. Ava. 19. Sweet. Quiet. Taken. And there was only one person on board who knew how to play dirty enough to send that kind of message. Marcus wasn't done. He wanted to break me the way our father broke him. But he didn't understand. I'd already been broken. Now I was fire. The storm hit just as the tender reached the dock, black clouds roiling above like some divine judgment. But inside the Aurora everything was calm. Luxury at equilibrium, elegance unshaken. I stood at the helm, staring at the tablet in my hand. A red dot blinked steadily on the screen. Ava's GPS tag still active. Still moving. Not far. I turned to Maria. Tell the captain we're not waiting. She hesitated. But the guests. They'll understand, I said, my voice flat. This isn't just business anymore. Within minutes we had pulled away from the dock, the yacht slicing through the choppy waters with quiet, terrifying grace. Below deck I changed into a black windbreaker and flats, function over flare. As the coastline grew closer, the red dot stopped moving. A half-abandoned villa clung to the rocks like a secret. I knew Marcus would pick something dramatic. He always needed an audience, even if it was just the ghosts of old money and empty rooms. We arrived silently. Maria stayed on board. The captain offered backup, but I shook my head. This was mine to finish. Inside, I found them in the wine cellar. Ava was tied to a chair, eyes wide but defiant. Marcus paced like a man on the edge. Suit jacket gone, hair wild, eyes full of that cracked brilliance that comes right before the fall. You ruined everything, he hissed when he saw me. You embarrassed us. You turned the world against me. No, Marcus, I said. You did that all by yourself. He held up a phone. One call and this goes public. Your offshore accounts, your aggressive takeovers, your dirty little acquisitions. You're no different than us. I stepped forward slowly. Go ahead. Leak it. Let them see I play hard. Let them see I didn't beg for permission to be great. But know this. I knelt beside Ava and cut the ropes with the knife I'd kept in my pocket since the SE hearings. When they ask who you kidnapped, who you threatened to hold onto your pathetic throne, they won't call you powerful. They'll call you a criminal. He stared at me, breathing hard. Then Ava stood up beside me, bruised but unbroken. She smiled. You're done, Marcus. He crumpled before we could say another word. 3 months later, Parker Tech launched the Ava Initiative, a startup accelerator for women-led tech companies. The Aurora became its mobile HQ, a symbol not of revenge but revolution. As for Marcus, he's currently serving 5 years under federal conviction for fraud, kidnapping, and obstruction. My mother sends me one-word emails now. Mostly sorry, but I don't need their validation anymore. Some victories aren't loud. Some legacies don't carry family names. And sometimes the real throne is built not from gold but grit.